This is a story that began long ago. It is a story of human love. It has a beginning, but it has, like time itself, no foreseeable end. For millions of people are still writing it, every year, every day, every hour. This is where it started. In the city of Washington in the late spring of 1881, a woman wrote a letter. She invited a few friends to join her at a meeting for the purpose of organizing a central national society of the Red Cross of Geneva. That woman, of course, was Clara Barton, and with the friends who answered her invitation, she founded the American Red Cross. This was the beginning, just a handful of people, but their numbers were destined to grow through the years into many, many people whose deeds were to shine through the fabric of our history. The protection of victims of war was one of the first and most important achievements of the new Red Cross. This was accomplished by U.S. ratification of the Geneva Treaty. But America broadened the movement to include aid in times of disaster. As early as 1881, it helped those made homeless by the Great Michigan forest fires. '82 and '84 were flood years on the Mississippi. The Red Cross chartered a river steamboat to bring relief. But no single person can fight catastrophes alone. In times of disaster, Clara Barton knew that other Americans wanted to help and could help through Red Cross. So she wrote letters, many letters from many places. She wrote in 1888 from the yellow fever camps in Florida, where she worked with members of the New Orleans Red Cross to improve conditions and restore to health the sufferers from epidemic. She wrote from Johnstown, Pennsylvania in 1889, after the break of the South Fork Dam drowned 2,000 human beings in the flood-ruined city. She wrote from the Carolina Sea Islands in the wake of the hurricane of 1893, when clothes and food were desperately needed. She wrote in 1900 from Galveston, Texas, where 5,000 persons perished in the crushing tidal waves. Clara Barton's work was nearly over, for this was her 80th year, but new hands were taking up her tasks. In 1905, the Red Cross was rechartered, and another dynamic woman, Miss Mabel Boardman, was to guide it through its most formative years. A supreme test came very soon. Here in the city of San Francisco, the time 1906. The San Francisco earthquake. In the uncontrolled fires that followed, hundreds of people died and thousands were made suddenly homeless. Directing relief in San Francisco was a remarkable Red Cross pioneer who was to develop its organization for disaster relief as we know it today, Ernest Bicknell. It was Colonel Bicknell who led the Red Cross as national director during the Great Ohio Valley flood of 1913, a flood that caused fearful havoc and loss of life in Dayton. But this was the year 1913. In a very short time, a much greater disaster was to occur overseas, the First World War of 1914 to 1918. Serving the men of the AEF were hundreds of Red Cross field workers. Scores of outpost service dugouts near the front brought cocoa, cigarettes, and messages from home. Backing up these men in France were more than 8 million Red Cross volunteers in the United States. In 1917, President Woodrow Wilson founded the now vast Junior Red Cross. And these years of war also saw the establishment of the Volunteer Nurses' Aides, the Gray Ladies, the Production and Motor Service, and the Red Cross canteens. Nearly 200 Red Cross workers gave their lives overseas. And one of those who died in France was Jane Delano, founder and chief of the Red Cross Nursing Service. After the war came the changing years of the 1920s. The Red Cross, greatly reduced from its wartime strength, still answered many a call, for 1927 was the year of the worst flood on record of the Mississippi. From Cairo to New Orleans, men frantically bolstered levees trying to hold the mighty river back. Millions of other Americans, through their Red Cross, built shelters, served food, and helped stem epidemic. In the finest tradition of neighbor helping neighbor, numberless volunteers stayed on the job for weeks and even months. Long before this, the Red Cross had made efforts to help people help others by establishing a wide-scale first aid program. Credit for this must go in part to Dr. Matthew Shields, another Red Cross pioneer. As early as 1910, he set up a Pullman car traversing the nation with trained personnel giving lessons in first aid, and out of this came other classes. Teams of miners competed, like these in 1915, to show their skill in life-saving techniques. This bore special interest for Dr. Shields. He'd been a physician in the Pennsylvania coal mining country, and he frequently served as a judge at the contests. First aid for as many people as possible. By 1935, the Red Cross established a highway first aid program to hold down the appalling human cost of traffic accidents. Millions of Americans are today able to act more calmly and more effectively in times of emergency by virtue of knowledge learned from Red Cross first aid classes. In saving life, one more man, Commodore Wilbert Longfellow, deserves special credit. Not merely from the Red Cross, which honored him for loyal service, but from countless people who, through his efforts, starting back in 1913, learned to swim, learned life-saving habits in water safety. A genial giant of a man, Commodore Longfellow established the Red Cross Aquatic Program that every year reaches out to more and more persons. In the first 35 years of the program's existence, nearly 12 million Americans had earned Red Cross swimming certificates. Knowledge of this kind is acutely needed in times of national emergency. And for America in 1941, a great emergency was coming. It came on a Sunday morning in December with the aerial bombardment of Pearl Harbor. World War II sent U.S. fighting men around the world, from the Southwest Pacific to the ETO. And wherever they went, Red Cross workers sought to serve them. They drove clubmobiles along the roads of China and India, and they drove them ashore on the beaches of Normandy. All done in the spirit of service to the serviceman from the American people. Canteens and snack bars, stationery, cigarettes and coffee, recreational facilities in every part of the world, wherever the Red Cross could provide a touch of home to the fighting man away from home. Volunteers packed cartons of supplies for prisoners of war in Germany and Japan, for delivery by Red Cross representatives in neutral countries. There were Red Cross services of 1,000 different kinds. They continued for the boys who went to Korea. They were there to greet them at the gateway to freedom at Panmunjom. Nor did they stop with the end of hostilities. In veterans' hospitals today, the Red Cross carries on in countless friendly and kindly human relationships. In recent years, the collection of blood has become one of the most important single Red Cross achievements. Through Red Cross collection centers in the last World War, 6 million donors sent this life-saving fluid to the battlefronts. That this saved soldiers and sailors' lives is well appreciated. Not so well known, perhaps, is the fact that Red Cross chapters in Georgia and Alabama had pioneered this human blood program in the early 1930s. The peacetime collection of blood is just as important. In cooperation with doctors, the Red Cross has established a system for meeting blood needs wherever they arise. It has stimulated and promoted the processing and use of blood derivatives. It distributes blood to 3,700 civilian hospitals. Human blood, freely given and freely used, is one more instance of people helping people through their national Red Cross. Disaster relief, especially in time of hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods, continues to be one of the major responsibilities of the Red Cross. In the first 75 years of its history, it had come to the rescue over 6,000 times. Shelter, clothing, food, emergency medical and nursing care, information for anxious relatives, and long-term aid to victims. All this whenever disaster strikes. Volunteers, it has been said, are the real heart of the American Red Cross. They may come from New Hampshire or New Mexico, from Oklahoma or Wisconsin, from Alaska or Alabama. But wherever they live, whatever they do, it is they who keep the Red Cross a living and a loving thing. Many of them give prodigiously of their time and talent and ask nothing in return. They are there in times of emergency, and they do many kinds of services. They ring doorbells and read books, take care of children, and give time to the aged. Without them, the Red Cross just wouldn't be. This is, after all, a story of love. It began long ago with a woman who wrote a letter. But like time itself, it has no end. For millions of volunteers are still writing its story, every year, every day, every hour.